Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Tuition Academy and today's lesson on specialized cells. So, first of all, before we start learning about specialized cells, first of all, here is a diagram of a typical plant cell. And just as a very quick do now, quick recap task, see if you can work out what all of these structures are. So pause the video for a second and write down what structures 1 to 7 are. Okay, now you've had a moment to do that. Let's go through the answers. Number 1 is the nucleus. Number 2 is the cell wall. Number 3 is mitochondria. Number 4 is the vacuole. Number 5 are the chloroplasts because they are bigger. They're also green because they contain the chemical chlorophyll, which absorbs sunlight. Number 6 is the cell membrane, which is on the inside of the cell wall. And number 7, of course, is the cytoplasm. So hopefully you got 7 out of 7. If you didn't, just have a quick look and just make a note of which one you got wrong. Okay, moving on. So today we are going to look at specialized cells. These are not typical cells like this one is. Okay, these actually have a special structure or they have special features which enables them to do a very special job, or another word for job is function. So we're going to look at lots of different types of specialized cells which are adapted or which have a structure in order to do a special job. Now, I'm going to show you here some pictures of some specialized cells, and let's see if you are able to identify what these are. So, there are 6 pictures, and if I give you a few minutes, if you pause at this point and try and work out what these are. Okay, now that you've had a go at looking at what these cells are, obviously some of them are easier than others, and there are some that you will be familiar with. So first of all, we have a brain cell. Okay, and you can see there are lots of connections because lots of brain cells, of course, connect with each other in order to pass messages. More on that later. Okay, and why we don't use the word messages. Number 2, they are muscle cells. Did you get that right? Okay, and one of the things that's a giveaway is they have these stripes in them. Okay, number 3, that is actually a pair of guard cells. So these two cells are guard cells. Okay, and this hole in the middle is called the stomata. More on that later. So these are found on the underside of a leaf. Cell number 4 is a white blood cell. Cell number 5 is, of course, sperm cells. And, of course, cell number 6 is red blood cells. Okay, that was hopefully an easy one. So, 6 different types of specialized cells, which you may have been able to identify by their features. So that's one of the things we can see, that all of these cells, whether they're plant cells or animal cells, are all different. Yes, they all, apart from red blood cells, which we'll come on to later, all of them have a nucleus, all of them have a cell membrane, all of them have cytoplasm, so they have those typical features of cells, but they are special in their own way, which enables them to do their job. Okay, so first thing, we're going to start off with red blood cells. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through all the features of red blood cells, and you can write very, very brief notes. And then afterwards, we're going to have a quiz. And afterwards, there is also a worksheet where you can actually fill in the answers on what the main key features of each cell are. Okay, so if you don't want to write notes, you can just do the worksheets at the end and put in all of the answers. But it's very, very important that you do understand all of these features and why they are there. So you can see there's a diagram there with the thinking cap. Okay, put your thinking cap on and just for 5 seconds, try and think what are the features of red blood cells? Is this something you actually know? Is this something you've actually done at school? Have a think. Okay, let's go through the answers then. So, red blood cells, first of all, they carry oxygen. Um, They are the way in which our blood carries oxygen to every single cell or tissue in our body. So the red blood cells pick up the oxygen in the lungs and take it to every cell. Inside the red blood cells is a chemical called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, which we'll learn about later when we study blood, actually picks up the oxygen. It actually combines with the oxygen, carrying it around the body. So, hemoglobin is a very, very important chemical or molecule found inside red blood cells, and they are literally full of it. The cytoplasm of a red blood cell is full of hemoglobin. Now, something else that's very unusual about red blood cells, which is why we describe them as specialized. Red blood cells have a biconcave disc shape. What on earth does that mean? It's a little bit like a donut, okay, but without the hole. Okay, now biconcave. Okay, so if I draw you a little diagram, it means that the red blood cell caves in the middle on both sides. Bi means two. Okay, so both sides, two sides. And cave means it's compressed in. Now, why is that? The reason they have a biconcave shape is because it increases the surface area of the cell. What does that mean? Let's compare these two cells. Okay, now in biology, we say because this one is compressed in the middle, okay, or squeezes in, it's actually got more surface area. It's actually got more cell membrane through which the oxygen can go through. So, if you have a look at a red blood cell as a disc, and then if you compare with a red blood cell that is a biconcave disc shape, the difference is this. Okay, so if it was a disc, it would look like this. And but because it's compressed in the middle, it's actually got all this extra surface. Okay, slightly more surface than the actual disc. And this greater surface area means it can actually absorb more oxygen. Now, surface area is something, and surface area in cells is something that we will be looking at later in greater detail because it's a very, very important concept in biology. Why do several cells have, several specialized types of cell have a high surface area? Why do some organisms have organs or structures, like the lungs, for instance, that have a high surface area? Okay, but for now, we need to know that red blood cells have a biconcave disc shape in order to increase the surface area to collect more oxygen through that surface. Another thing that's unusual about red blood cells is that they do not have a nucleus. They are the only cell in humans or in animals, because humans are animals, that does not have a nucleus. Now, just imagine if there was a nucleus inside the red blood cell, it would take up a lot of space. Okay, a lot of volume. All right, and that would mean less space for hemoglobin, less space for carrying oxygen. So they do not have a nucleus, so they can carry more hemoglobin in their cytoplasm to pick up the oxygen. Okay, so that was red blood cells. Make sure you're absolutely familiar with all of these features. Very, very important for you to know that. We are now going to move on to our second cell, which is root hair cells. Okay, so there is a picture of root hair cells. Just think for a moment, what sorts of things can you see? Okay, let's go through the features of root hair cells, which are our second example of a specialized type of cell. So it's these hairs which are actually embedded in the main part of the root, and they are actually cells. Okay, so root hair cells are found on the roots, and therefore, because they are underground in the soil, because their job is to absorb water, they do not have chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are structures which absorb light. Because the root hairs are in the soil, they do not even get any light. So root hair cells do not have any chloroplasts, but they do have all of the other things, including cell walls, cell membrane, mitochondria, cytoplasm, nucleus, and so on. Okay, as you can see, the root hair cells are long and thin, and they have again a large surface area. So let's just compare, okay, so that we all understand. And here is a root hair cell. So this is the part that's inside the main part of the root, and here's the little bit of the hair sticking out. That is a root hair cell with a small surface area. This is a root hair cell with a long surface area. So you can see that it's a large surface area. It's long to collect more water. Okay, the longer the root hair cell, the more water absorbed. Now, it's not just water that is absorbed, it's also mineral ions. Okay, so you may have used the word minerals. Okay, at a high level of GCSE, we call them mineral ions. Okay, you may have heard of ions in chemistry. One of the main ions is nitrate ions. That's one of the main ones that plants need, nitrate ions. You don't need to worry too much about this because you will cover it later in photosynthesis. And another ion is magnesium ions. I'm just going to put Mg2 plus, and these help the plant make chlorophyll. So these are the minerals or ions that plants need to absorb through their root hair cells. Okay, please don't call them nutrients. Okay, don't say that the plant absorbs nutrients through the root hair cells. That is not a term to use because the word nutrients is very, very vague. Okay, nutrients could be the food that we absorb in our digestive system. Okay, it's best to call it mineral ions. Okay, one other feature that you will meet later on is that root hair cells contain lots of mitochondria. Okay, so inside them, there are lots of mitochondria because to do their job of absorbing mineral ions, okay, they need lots of energy. And where does energy come from? It comes from mitochondria. Okay, so notice that as we're learning features of specialized cells, there are lots of links that we're actually making to other parts of the specification. So that is everything you need to know so far about root hair cells. Let's move on to the third specialized cell that is worth learning about, and that is sperm cells. Okay, so have a think for a moment about what features they have regarding their structure. Okay, now that you've had a think, let's have a look. First of all, they have a tail for swimming because, of course, sperm cells need to swim towards the egg. Um, Other than tails, the other main feature that they have, of course, is a nucleus containing DNA. This is the DNA or the genes of the male. And that nucleus, of course, will enter and fuse with the nucleus of the egg after fertilization. This is when the sperm meets the egg. Okay, so the DNA of the sperm will enter the egg. Okay, and that will, of course, create a baby. In the head of the sperm, just next to the nucleus, there is a little section. It's called an acrosome, but you don't need to worry about that word. And it contains a little structure containing enzymes. These enzymes actually digest their way through the cell membrane of the egg cell. Okay, so that the sperm or the nucleus of the sperm can actually get into the egg. The other part of a sperm cell is the midsection, and that's just behind the nucleus where it meets the tail. And that section has lots and lots of mitochondria. And mitochondria, as you have seen, is where the energy is released. And in this case, it's the energy for swimming. Okay, moving on. So that was sperm cells. The next cell that we need to know about is xylem. Now, it may be possible that you've never ever heard of xylem, or you have absolutely no idea what xylem is. Okay, so just have a think what they look like. Can you see these tubes that look like straws? They've got gaps in the walls, as you can see, because what xylem cells do is they carry water up a plant. So these are only found in plants. Okay, xylem cells form long, hollow tubes. Okay, long tubes that are hollow in the middle. They carry water and mineral ions up plants from the roots to the leaves, where water is required for photosynthesis and mineral ions are required as well for growth. The walls of the xylem vessels are made of a very strong chemical substance called lignin, something you will meet later when you study xylem in detail. Lignin is a hard, woody chemical and it helps hold the plant upright. Now, the plant cells have already got cellulose cell walls, which are strong, but the lignin means that the plant has even more support and strength so that it doesn't, buckle or blow over in the wind. Okay, obviously, in a very strong storm, it might. Okay, but otherwise, plants in their stems have xylem cells or xylem vessels, and they contain this strong substance called lignin in their walls to hold them upright and carry water and mineral ions up. Now, alongside xylem, there is also another type of cell called phloem. Now that you've learnt about xylem, let's see if you can work out what the features of phloem are. Okay, so just have a think looking at the picture. Okay, you can see it's another type of tube or a collection of vessels, also found in the stem. Now, xylem and phloem are found in the stem, but they're also found in the roots and they're also found in the leaves as well. Okay, so phloem cells, what do? They transport sugars. The plant literally makes sugars in the chloroplasts from light energy and carbon dioxide and water. So, just a quick sort of summary there. So, light energy and CO2, carbon dioxide, which is taken in by plants, and water make sugars like glucose plus oxygen in photosynthesis. So, phloem gets all these sugars and takes them up and down the plant to any cell or any part of a plant that needs sugar for energy. Okay, and those sugars, of course, go into the mitochondria for energy release. So the plant cells have got energy, for instance, to grow, etc. Now, in phloem vessels, they actually do have cell walls at the ends of each cell, and these cell walls have got little holes in them. Okay, and they're called sieve plates because they look a little bit like a sieve. You may have a sieve in your kitchen, you may sieve tea leaves, you may sieve flour, and so on. It's just a piece of kitchen equipment with lots and lots of tiny holes in. Well, these are called sieve plates, and they are found in the phloem tubes or vessels. And what happens in phloem is that sugars or sugar solution goes down but also goes up. Okay, so it's a transport system. A bit like a motorway, you've got traffic going one way and you've got traffic coming down the other way. Okay, so these are phloem cells which carry sugars. More on them later, but they are a very important specialized cell. Next one. Okay, we're going through lots of cells at the moment, just a few more. The next one is also found in plants, palisade mesophyll cells. Just have a think for a moment. Where would these be and what have they got a lot of? Have a look at them very, very carefully. Okay, let's have a little discussion about palisade mesophyll cells. Okay, they are found in leaves. They are actually found near the top of a leaf. More on that later. As you can see, they have a lot of chloroplasts. So here are the chloroplasts. Okay, now in this diagram, you can see there are 6 chloroplasts, but actually there would often be many, many more than that. Okay, now what do chloroplasts do? They contain chlorophyll, they absorb light energy. That light energy helps make glucose, which is a sugar, in a reaction called photosynthesis. Okay, so these are cells in a leaf that absorb lots of light and make lots of sugar in photosynthesis. So they're little sugar making factories inside leaves. Okay, so the light comes from above, and you can see they are packed with chloroplasts. Okay, so P for palisade, P for packed with chloroplasts, for P for photosynthesis. Okay, and these are found inside a leaf. They're the main site of photosynthesis, and they are the cells that have the most number of chloroplasts. So if you're thinking of leaf, if I were to draw you a little side view of leaf, okay, the palisade mesophyll cells are here, okay, towards the top of a leaf. Now, an interesting thing about palisade mesophyll cells is the way they are packed together inside the leaf. Notice they look like rectangles and they are standing vertically. Now, the reason they're standing vertically is because you can fit more of them in a leaf. Let's have a look at two leaves. This is a cross section of a leaf. This is a cross section of a leaf. If the palisade mesophyll cells were horizontal, you would only be able to get a few inside the length of the leaf. But because they're vertical, you can actually pack more in like this. So because they're vertical and rectangular shaped, which means they pack tightly together, it means that actually you can get many, 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 many more of the palisade cells into a leaf, okay, each absorbing lots and lots of light, okay. And what's also very interesting, and this is more A level, is that these chloroplasts can actually move around. So this chloroplast comes and collects light from the top, but then it moves down. And the next chloroplast moves up to the top to collect even more light. So there's almost like a flow of chloroplasts in these palisade mesophyll cells. So these are very, very important cells because, of course, this is where all of our food comes from. All of our food comes from plants. And where is this food, or where are these sugars made? Inside palisade mesophyll cells. Okay, moving on to the next specialized cell that we need to know about is nerve cells. Have a think about the nerve cells. There's a diagram on the right. What sorts of things come to mind when you think about nerve cells? Just have a think for a few seconds. Okay, nerve cells, of course, obviously they're in our nervous system. They carry electrical messages from one part of the body to another, like from our brains to our legs, to our arms, to our hands, telling the muscles to contract. Obviously, they also send signals to the brain. For instance, if you touch something like something rough or something sharp, like a nail, then of course your brain gets the sensation of pain that you've actually touched something sharp. So you've got electrical messages going to the brain. Okay. Now, at GCSE, we do not call them messages. That's more of a word that you use mainly at primary school. We call them electrical impulses. Okay. Now, if you don't like the word impulses and you think that's a long, complicated word, and I'm sure you don't, then you can, for now, use the word electrical signals. Okay. But at GCSE, we say electrical impulses. So, in other words, nerves are a little bit like wires carrying electric impulses or current from one part of the body to another. This is the long part of the nerve, okay, and it's called the axon, but you don't need to worry about that too much. And then we've got these connections here called dendrites, which connect to other nerve cells in order to pass on those electrical impulses. Just a reminder, there was a question once asking students to label features of a nerve cell. Now, remember, all of these specialized cells actually have the same subcellular structures or organelles that you would find in a typical animal cell. So, for instance, that is the nucleus because lots of students were confused on what to label. So, that is still the nucleus. This is like the cell body of the nerve cell or neuron. Okay, nerve cells are also called neurons, a word you will definitely meet later when you study the nervous system. So we have a nucleus. This here is the cytoplasm, which is here it's donated by a blue color inside the cell. And this, of course, here is the cell membrane. There is no cell wall because, of course, nerve cells are animal cells and they do not have cell walls. Inside the nerve cells, you will have lots of mitochondria, lots of ribosomes, but they're just not on this diagram. So if we wanted to, we could draw some mitochondria. Here you are. And you could also draw lots of ribosomes. Okay, there you go, where proteins are made. And nerve cells, like all cells, do make proteins. Okay, moving on. So that was nerve cells. Obviously, at any point, you can pause the video or rewind if you need to go back and have a further look or spend more time on each cell. And of course, the last cell we're going to look at is muscle cells. Just have a think. What do muscle cells do? Where would you find them? Okay, let's have a look. So, muscle cells are long. Just think of your, let's say, biceps in your arm. These are your arm muscles. They're made of lots and lots and lots and lots of millions of long muscle cells. What do muscle cells do? They contract. Okay, they contract, which means they like squeeze or squash together, and then they relax. When they contract, because they're joined with tendons, onto bones, it means that they can pull bones. So when your muscle cells in your biceps contract, then it means you can use your hands, your arms to lift things, okay? Or you can pull. Okay, muscle cells aren't just found attached to bones. There is lots of muscle inside you. The heart, for instance, is made of muscle cells. More on that later. But also, muscle cells actually contract and help push food down your digestive system. So, from the moment that you swallow, there are muscles in the esophagus going all the way down to the stomach, which push the food. So there are muscles that are contracting and relaxing. When the food is mixed up in your stomach, again, there are muscles contracting and relaxing, same as in your intestines. Now, muscle cells use a lot of energy in order to contract. And because of that, they contain large numbers of mitochondria. Lots of mitochondria, obviously, for energy, for contraction. Okay, so that was muscle cells. Right, okay, I'm going to give you a quiz. And so, what I would like you to do, there are about 8 questions, and I'm going to read each question, and I'd like you to write down the answer. Is it A, B, C, or D? So, here goes. Question 1. What is the main function of a root hair cell? I'm going to give you a few seconds to read the answers and write down the correct answer A, B, C, or D. This is a progress check to see if you have actually understood all the features of the specialized cells. Okay, and the answer is, of course, B. The main function of a root hair cell is to absorb water and mineral ions from the soil. Question 2. What feature of a sperm cell helps it reach the egg? And you can probably see straight away that the answer, of course, is B. It's the long tail. Obviously, the biological term for that is flagellum. Okay, number three. Why do muscle cells contain many mitochondria? And the answer is C, to release energy for contraction. By the way, if at any point you feel you want to slow down a bit, just pause the video after the question and then reveal the answer afterwards once you've had a chance to actually digest, excuse the pun, digest what's actually on the screen. Number four, what adaptation helps a red blood cell carry oxygen efficiently? And the answer is B, a biconcave shape and no nucleus. Number five, which specialized cell is adapted to transmit, that means carry, electrical impulses? And the answer is B, it's a nerve cell or neuron. Number six, which cell type contains lots of chloroplasts and is found in leaves? Now, there are all of these cells are found in plants, by the way, so it might be a little bit tricky. And three of them are also found in leaves, except that this one contains lots of chloroplasts. And the answer, of course, is B, because that's where photosynthesis takes place in the palisade mesophyll cells. Number seven. How are xylem cells adapted for their function? Which of these do they have? Which helps them do their job? And pause if you need more time. Otherwise, the answer is, of course, C. They are hollow and their walls are strengthened with lignin. So it was 7C. Number eight. Oh, sorry, there were seven. So how many did you get right out of seven? Just have a think. In terms of this progress check, did you get 7 out of 7? Or were you very close and you just need to go back and maybe look at another cell, okay, in detail? So, the last thing I want you to do, and this is very, very important in order to understand specialized cells in general and all their features, is on the screen you will see lots of very, very important questions regarding these specialized cells. And if you could pause the video at this point and answer those questions. Okay, if you want to take a screenshot and you want to print this out, you can do, or you can just write out the answers as full answers, or even copy the questions down because they'd be very important, like on flashcards or notes. Okay, so pause the video now and take your time, whether it takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then unpause when you want to go through the answers. Okay, so in order to go through the answers, you've unpaused, and here goes. So, the heads of sperm cells contain enzymes. Why would they need these? To digest their way into the egg. Why do sperm need lots of mitochondria? More energy for swimming. What is the function or job of muscle cells? Contract, or you could put contract and relax. Of course, for everyone you've got correct, put a tick. And if you haven't got it correct, of course, put the correct answer down. Muscle cells contain lots of mitochondria. Why would this be? More energy for contraction. What is it inside red blood cells that what do they contain? Um, that allows them to carry oxygen is, of course, hemoglobin. Why do you think it's better that red blood cells do not have a nucleus? That should say do not have a nucleus, more room for hemoglobin or oxygen. Root hair cells. Why do you think it's better that root hair cells are so long and thin? Because they have a larger surface area to absorb water and mineral ions. Why do root hairs not contain chloroplasts? They are in soil, so they do not need to absorb light because they are underground. Palisade leaf cells. Why are palisade leaf cells packed with chloroplasts? To absorb lots of light for photosynthesis. How are the shape of the palisade cells an advantage? They are rectangular and vertical, so more of them can fit inside a leaf. Nerve cells. What do nerve cells do? They carry electrical impulses or signals. How are they adapted? They are long and have lots of connections. Xylem and phloem, last of all. What do xylem vessels carry and in which direction? They carry water and mineral ions up the xylem, up the plant. What do phloem vessels carry? In which direction? They carry sugars both up and down in both directions. So hopefully you got all or most of those questions right. Okay, so well done on all your efforts. Hope you found it a very, very interesting lesson. So thank you very much, and we'll catch up again for the next lesson. Thank you. Do make sure you review this work. Okay, take care and bye.